Hello and welcome to our Loving Your Garden podcast, linked to our Loving Your Garden Facebook group and YouTube channel. I'm Rod Whiting, group founder, and with me are our resident horticulturist, John Stirland. Hello, John.
Hello there, Rod.
And our special guest this week, group member Steve Fives.
Hello.
Hello, Steve. Steve has a stunning garden in Cheshire and is a constant source of lawn envy, certainly from me. And I suspect a lot of other members as well. It's right up there with Augusta, with a hat tip to golf fans. A stunning lawn, complemented by some beautiful palm trees. It's got the sort of place that you would expect to see in Portugal or Barbados or other exotic locales. So what is Steve's secret? Well, who better to tell us than the man himself? Hello, Steve.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hiya, Steve.
Well, very good to have you with us. Actually, can we start? I mean, we're putting photographs of this up so people can have a look for themselves. But can we start by asking a little bit about your garden?
Of course, yeah. I think I've been at the property now for 15 years, and when we first moved into the property, it was in a bit of a state of disrepair, and the gardens in particular had been hugely neglected. We're very blessed that from the property we can see 5 counties with our views, so we have an elevation of about 450 feet, which gives us a wonderful perspective. And I do recall the estate agent speaking to me when we were walking through the property, and I just couldn't hear anything he was saying because I was just looking at the views and looking at the gardens. It was this blank canvas for me just to be able to create something pretty special, really. So yes, when we first started here in 2010, what I call, and John would probably gasp at this, what I call a lot of car park plants, a lot of things that were pretty unkept. And one of the main visions that I had for the property was that feeling of escapism, that wonderful feeling that you have when you're on holiday, that when you're surrounded with palm trees, sun setting. And I just thought, I wonder if I could create that kind of feel, that kind of vibe at home. And that's where the journey began.
Yeah, and it's choice of plants. The plants are there, aren't they, Steve? If you find them, the right ones to create what you wanted.
Oh, 100%, John. Yeah, I think my first palm tree here cost £6, and it was a cordyline australis.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, that looks pretty good. And then that's when the journey began, where the first palm was planted in 2010. And fast forward nearly 15 years, and I now have 150 palms. And
wow.
Those palms, some of the palms are over 25 feet tall, believe it or not.
Good heavens.
It just shows you can grow them here, can't you?
Yeah,
it just shows
absolutely.
you. Yeah, whatever you want to do, you can.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, I've suffered some casualties. I've learned how to maintain them and kind of care for them, if you like. The winters back in 2010, 2011 were pretty much quite harsh, really. A bit harsh what they are now. So I learned pretty quickly that if I was going to spend a few pounds on a palm, that I had to protect it through the winter. And to be honest, that's where the journey began, of really learning which palms were the hardiest, which palms to avoid with our then British winters, and which ones that really give me that striking backdrop that I was looking for to create that kind of far and away bit of escapism.
Yeah. Well, we'll come to the specifics for people who want some advice on buying and caring for palm trees. But I think what a lot of people are going to want to know is about the lawn, because, as I say, I mean, I do get lawn envy at the best of times. But when I saw your lawn, I just, in fact, I contacted you immediately and said, I need to interview you. I want to know what your secret is. But there is no secret, really, is there? It's just good old-fashioned lawn care. So let's just go through the processes without getting too technical. Was it a good lawn when you got it, or did it need a bit of work?
It needed quite a bit of work, Rod. There was lots of. One of the things that my main mantra with lawn care is to cut little and often. And I think it would appear that the previous owners of the property really weren't gardeners, as much as there's a stunning backdrop and there's a couple of acres which were quite neglected. It became quite apparent that when I first started to cut the grass, that there was obviously a little bit of TLC that was required. So over the course of probably the first 2 or 3 years, I just kind of looked and I saw where the sun shone, what areas of shade, what I needed to do with the various grass seeds, and where I needed to plant and where I needed to specifically pay a little bit more attention to. So it probably took me 2 or 3 years when we first arrived at the property to just get my head around what the sun was doing and what growth was happening where. And then 2 or 3 years later, maybe I kind of embarked on my first lawn maintenance program. I had a little bit more time. I have the benefit of having a company that comes every 10 weeks that, because of the sheer scale and size of the lawns, they do the scarification, the aeration, and any other kind of routine machinery tasks that we consider together, that we do together. And I think one of the key benefits for me has been just building it up over a period of time. And I think that can be an inspiration as well, because I think sometimes it can be pretty intimidating when you look at a big lawn and think it doesn't look the way I want it to look. So I just picked off on one area of lawn. So the top lawn, which we call the infinity lawn, which tends to be featured on a lot of the posts on Loving Your Garden. So it was a smaller part of a bigger picture, if you like. So I just thought, if I can get that right, let's start there. So let's not worry too much about the rest of the lawns. Let's just get that right. And that's where I focused my energy. So for probably it took me 5 years to get the lawn to any kind of standard, if I'm absolutely honest. That involved a lot of work, a lot of scarification, a lot of aeration, and then to fertilise at the right times as well. My main mantra is that you cannot outfeed a poor cutting routine. You know, if you're cutting the lawns once a fortnight, it's so difficult to keep that lushness, that kind of lushness that we all want in our lawns. Yeah. It's impossible if you're just cutting the grass when it really, really looks like it needs cutting.
Yeah, can I ask you what type of mower you use?
Yeah.
Because that can make a heck of a difference to the finish. Well, it does. Yeah.
It can. I'm very blessed that I've got a wonderful mower. It's a Steiger. It's an e-power mower, so it's a battery mower, and it's the twin clip 950 VR. So it's got the rear roller, which gives the wonderful stripes. Yeah. It gives me a good 2 hours of cutting time, which it takes me approximately 2 hours to cut the lawns here. It's a 7-kilometre walk, so it gets the steps in.
Yeah.
And do you know what, John?
What type of cut is it? A rotary or a?
Yes,
it is a rotary.
It's a rotary cut.
Yeah,
it's a rotary cut, and so many people have asked me over the years, Steve, why don't you use a ride-on mower? I get tired just looking at you cutting the grass.
Yeah.
There's too many intricacies here. There's so many slopes, there's so many undulations, and with a ride-on mower as well. I've also got quite a steep ha-ha with about an 8-foot fall off. So it's pretty painful if I get that one wrong on a ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm interested as well. I'm surprised, actually, that you tell me it's a rotary mower, not a cylinder mower.
Yeah. It's I've tried them all, Rod, over the years. I think with the cylinder mower, there was an element of sculpting the grass because of the undulations, and you were continually resetting it on the same cut. So you might well have 4 or 5 different settings based upon where you were mowing. So for me, it was much easier having a rotary mower that I could control a little bit more freely. And you get the feel when you're mowing as to, how it's going to grab, and certain parts of the lawns that are a little bit more prone to kind of it being scalped than others. But yeah, the mower itself, I cannot fault it. I've had the mower now for the best part of 2 years. And Steiger entrust me with, some honest feedback about it. And they've been wonderful. And the support and the people that have actually asked me what my opinion on the product is, has been wonderful, because the feedback has been one of genuine intent, where I've said, well, I'm using it 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And I think it is important, because I have had mowers in the past that haven't been that great, and you can tell it does make a difference.
Yeah.
And what about...
Sorry, Rod,
go on, John.
That rear roller, it really does just give that little bit of pressure, doesn't it? That makes all the difference.
It does.
You know, you're not after a wicket, you know, where they use an enormous roller and, you know, you can hardly move it. It's just enough for a really good lawn, the rear roller.
It is. It makes such a difference.
Yep.
What about, I know you like the exercise, and I'm just thinking robot mowers now are getting very, very good. And, of course, the advantage of the robot mower is that it does it frequently. And as you say, that's good for the lawn. Have you considered a robot mower, or would you just prefer the exercise of pushing it?
I do love the exercise, I must admit. It is good for the soul, Rod. I love getting out there.
Yes.
I really do. The robot mowers, I've not actually trialled one here yet, and I think I've not really seen a robot mower that can give me that defined stripe that I get with the roller.
Sure.
mower.
Yeah, you wouldn't. That's true.
Yeah, and also with the ride-on mowers, at the time, I don't know whether the technology has improved since, but at the time, with the ride-on mowers, there was nothing that gave me that kind of roller finish either. It would self-mulch, but I'd look at the lawn and think, yes, it looks neat, but it doesn't give me that wow.
No,
it is
you've
a
got
wow as well.
It's all in the price, Steve. You know, if you're willing to spend 7,000 or 8,000 on a mower, you'll get the right one. But
John, let's just talk about some of the technicals here, because Steve mentioned a couple of really critical phases, which is the scarification, the aeration.
Yeah.
And I'm so pleased Steve also said it took him 5 years, because I think too often people think they can do all this in a year. They can do it all in one season.
Yeah.
You absolutely can't. It takes years.
Rod, it takes as long as to be a vet. As long as to get to be a vet, a qualified vet, it takes to be a groundsman. You've got to know all the different grasses, all the mixtures and things like that. And that's one of the most important things as well. You've got to remember that in the sward, in a square metre of grass, you've got thousands and thousands of plants in competition with one another. And as Steve mentions, the feed, you know, you're taking grass off, and you know the grass is growing again. Those thousands of grasses are in competition all the time, and they need nutrients, and the right nutrients at the right time of year, just like any other any other plant. And it's a very, very skilled job. And as you know, I call it the garden carpet. It isn't a lawn, it's called the garden carpet with me, and I should think it probably is with Steve.
Well, it looks like a carpet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. So the scarification process, for the benefit of people who are really new to this, the scarification process is basically it's ripping out all that dead grass, the thatch, the rubbish that accumulates in a lawn, particularly if you've left it for a period of time over winter or whatever. And you can either use a rake, or if you've got a lawn the size of Steve's, then you'll need a machine.
Yeah, you'll need a machine. And, of course, you've got the companies now that will come in and get it. But don't forget, Rod, you've also got, depending on what sort of lawn you want, you've also got mowers now, that mulch mowers, that actually push that thatch, cut grass down into the sward, you know, so it all depends on what you're after, you know, and if you've got children, you know, tearing around all the while, you're going to to get it right, you're going to have a lot more work, because it doesn't take, you look at a cricket wicket after they've had a game on it, you know, you can get about 2 games a year, and then they have to move them and bring all that back. It's such a skilled job, and it's a fantastic job as well.
So your aeration is fairly obvious. You've got to get oxygen down to the roots.
Absolutely.
And you can get devices now that will take plugs of soil out of the ground.
Yes.
I mean, I've hired one of those rather than have one in the garage. I've hired one of those, and the garden looks horrendous after you've run one of those over it. And you think, oh, it's never going to be the same again. But it does it so much good to get some of that, especially with heavy clay soil like I've got.
And if
get that all out.
And you're improving your soil as well, because you can put a good top dressing on, and that goes into the cores that you take out, and you end up with improving the lawn all the time, improving the area of ground for those thousands of plants that are trying to grow against one another all the time.
Yeah, top dressing, that's another thing that
what top dressing do you use, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, it really does depend on the harshness of the winter as well, I've found, when each feed is kind of due. I tend to use an organic fertiliser. I tend to use a slow release coated fertiliser as well, which releases the nutrients over a 10-week period rather than that instant hit that you get with some of the more harsher, abrasive ones. I've seen as well that the uncoated ones, if there's not any natural irrigation, if it doesn't rain quite quickly after you've applied it, it can scorch the lawn. And I think this is a problem that a lot of people have had that have contacted me, that have said, I've put feed down, Steve, but my lawn's gone brown. Well, when did you do it? Has it rained? Have you watered it in? How much sun gets into that area? So the company that I use, which is My Lawn, which is very close to me here in Cheshire, they use all organic products, and it's the slow release fertilizers and even an extraction of seaweed as well. You wouldn't believe how the release of seaweed onto certainly the top lawn, which is in the sun all day, how that can really green it up. And I've been really impressed with that mix of putting some seaweed into an organic fertilizer.
How do you spread the stuff? I mean, have you got a spreader that gives you an even spread?
Yes. Yeah, there's several. I use a kind of hand one on the top lawn. My Lawn, when they come, they have two machines, even spreaders, and it takes them, as you can imagine, with a couple of acres, it takes them about an hour and a half or so to just have one feed.
Wow.
And I look at the guys in Orr and Darren from My Lawn. I must admit, I've pestered him, and I've been literally walking on his shoulder, watching what he's doing each time he's come. So I've learned so much from these guys as well, which has helped me in between. So there's certain things that I felt that I've wanted to supplement the lawn with, and it's with the professionals and asking the professionals and their advice that I've just absorbed it and just adapted around it.
I bet you, if you're watching a football match, I bet you love groundsmen nowadays. When you get a football match, it's like a competition, isn't it? Who can get the best shapes and designs on the football pitch. It fascinates me to watch. Although obviously football grounds now they're under lights and everything in winter. The grounds retract and are under lights, and it's just unbelievable. Yeah,
a lot of them are synthesizing at night, aren't they?
What they'll go to get decent grass, but that's where they act. That's where they do their acting, isn't it, on a football pitch?
So I think we've covered most of the critical things about lawn care. But feel free to add stuff if we haven't. I'm just conscious of your time, Steve. Should we move on to palm trees?
Yes.
And specifically, given, I mean, I know this is an international group, so there'll be people in different climates, but the UK climate is the bulk of our membership. It's as we know, it's a pretty unfriendly place in winter, certain times of the year, particularly the further north you go. So, what are the things to bear in mind, and can you give us specifics in terms of different types of palm tree that would be better?
Of course, yeah. I think I get so many requests and so many direct mails about what type of palms do you use, and what I've tried to do with the Love in Your Garden group is just to a couple of short video extracts where I've talked about the specific varieties of palms that have really worked for me here. I think Cheshire, we're kind of, where we are based, relatively central to the UK as a whole. We don't tend to have too many weather extremes where we are, although we do have a little bit of a microclimate because we're protected by the Welsh mountains here, and then we're looking at the Cheshire Plain. So there's thermals in the atmosphere that apparently you don't get in one or two other areas. So the types of palm that we have here, the first and foremost and the most hardy palm that we have here is the Trachycarpus fortunei. I've probably got over 70 of them here, and they are astonishingly hardy. We fleece them when they're young, so when they're going in and they're relatively small, so I say small, maybe 2 or 3 feet, in maybe a 10-litre pot that I may have bought them through. And then very quickly, as soon as the roots establish in the Trachycarpuses, boy, do you get growth. It's astonishing. If you protect them in the winter, that's the key. So we normally do it in and around when the clocks change, if I'm honest. We look at the frost and we think, if it gets to around -5, we think, okay, well, now we need to really start looking at protecting those palms. So so we'll tend to start fleecing in and around early November. And it takes us, believe it or not, it takes us about 2.5 to 3 weeks to fleece them all.
Wow.
Yeah, and my wife, Jenny, she just, every time I come home with a new palm, she just rolls around. That's another one I've got to fleece.
This is it, isn't it? If you've got something you love, you'll go into. Have you ever grown a banana?
No.
No, because I've got a friend who used to grow bananas, and of course he has to put a frame around it for winter, and it's packed with straw. They go to town, but it gets through the winter, and it's you can do it. What I look at, even a simple something like as common forsythia won't grow if the conditions aren't right. Every plant needs the right conditions, and you give them those right conditions in the soil, etc. And looking at the aspect that you've done, with the Cheshire Plain and your Welsh mountains, you can grow the world's your oyster, honestly, and that's what's exciting. Look what I've grown. Look what I've grown. Nobody else in this country's ever grown one, and I have in Cheshire.
It's so true, John. I get so many people that come to the house. They say they genuinely feel like they're on. And I love that, because that's always been the vision. And of course, the Trachycarpuses are very striking, most commonly known as the fan palm. The real striking presence, whether you put them in the middle of a bed, you can surround them with aggregate, you can surround them with, perennials, herbaceous plants, whatever you want to. There's such a focal point of any bed that you put them in. The cordylines aren't as hardy, as much as we've got some super cordylines here, and some of them are really big. The one that I feature on quite a few of the posts is 20 feet tall, and it's a multi-stem. And the story around that was that we lost it in 2013, really bad winter, and we lost that palm. This was where I was relating to earlier about learning mistakes and learning lessons, and then learning, and actually I really do need to start protecting certain varieties of palms. And so I literally, and this is a really good tip for people as well with cordylines, if you actually take the trunk and just cut the trunk to the very base of the soil, believe it or not, you will see a multi-stem that will develop from a single cordyline. That plant that you see, the tree now that you see on a lot of the pictures, believe it or not, is only 9 years old, and it's 20 feet tall. Yeah. And it's eight stems. And
8 stems, yeah.
So striking. But the cordylines it's really, really important that you protect them from the frost and from the snow in particular. It's worth all of the work. My friends, family, they think Jenny and I were mad. Each winter we're out there with our bobble hats on, and we're fleecing everything up. And when it does snow, when it does catch you out, I'm out there, you'll laugh, but I'm out there with step ladders and a rake, and I'm shaking these palm trees, and I'm underneath, and the snow's falling on me, but I'm clearing the core of the plant so there's no damage.
Yeah, I I wanted just one plant that looked a little bit tropical, and I picked a fatsia. I think a fat. I don't know whether you've got one, but a fatsia looks tropical, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely plant.
And flowers in February time, so fantastic.
Yeah, one of the better evergreens, isn't it? The fatsia.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a beautiful plant, and the other variety that we have a phormium here, so the spear-like leaves with the phormium. Not as easy to fleece because they're so malleable in the wind, and whatever you tie them with and whatever you try to fleece them with, it does tend to, with the winds that we have, we're quite relatively exposed here with the elevation that we have.
Yeah.
They're not the easiest thing to protect, but we find a way.
Yeah.
Bungee cords or whatever you've got.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah.
We're blessed to live on a sandstone seam here. So one of the most recent projects that I did was to create a new border. We've got a real beautiful rhododendron which flowers probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks or so. And it was just lost over that side of the garden. So I decided in my infinite wisdom that I would create another border. And the border was about 120 metres square. And I dug it all out. And honestly, you wouldn't believe how many times the spade hit a piece of sandstone that was in the ground.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it would, it would literally, I think I'm still vibrating now from it, guys, when I hit all this sandstone.
Yeah.
And what I decided to do with all of that sandstone was make features of the sandstone in and around the palm trees. So a lot of the things that I've done here has been upcycled from the natural environment that we're in.
Are you in the National Garden Scheme yet, Steve? Or
No. Do you know what, Roddy? If I had £1 for every time somebody asked whether they'd come over, maybe watch this space with that one, and I'll perhaps seek some advice from you guys around things. But we're very, very blessed that we have the interest in the house and the gardens that we have. I certainly don't take it for granted. I also want to take this opportunity, Rod, to thank you as well, because on behalf of all of the members within the group, approaching 450,000, which is astonishing. 5 years young this year. I just think you're giving people a forum, you're giving people a community that they can look for inspiration, they can ask questions, they can learn. We can use it as like a community, and I'm quite relatively private with the gardens before the Loving Your Garden group. And I must admit, my first couple of posts, I'm thinking, is this going to go down well? Does it look like, there's something that I'm trying to profile unnecessarily or getting that balance right? But the feedback from the community and how everybody's so friendly and so engaging, you must be incredibly proud of that achievement. And I think on behalf of all of the members, I just wanted to thank you because it's a forum that I never thought I'd be a part of.
Well, bless you, Steve. It's very gracious of you. And it's only thanks to, some very helpful people like John and Martin Fish and others, guests that very graciously come on and talk to us. And a great admin team as well. I couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, I must say, Steve, I did 46 years on Radio Nottingham, and then when I finished Radio Nottingham, I managed to get over to Radio Lincoln, and I met this guy there, and yes, and then he said he was retiring, but he'd taken, we won't go into any more of it. But, it was one of the best, one of the best things that happened to me, popping over to Radio Lincoln.
What you guys have achieved, and you can see the rapport and the general enthusiasm that you have for it. It is infectious, and I think if I get a message from somebody that says I've inspired them to get out into the garden that day and do something, it's just such a good feeling. It's good for the soul, and I love putting something back. And if we can achieve something together in terms of the community and them feeling that there's some support there, for me that it's quite important. Well, it's very important, and I think the garden for me has been a source of release. It's been in terms of mental health and well-being for so many people out there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We've all got our own little private enclaves, irrespective of how big they are. It's how it makes you feel when you're in that private enclave that's the key.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
totally agree.
Steve, I'm conscious of your time, and thank you for those kind remarks, and thank you for some fabulous background information and some advice too. I know that's going to be much valued by our members, and I can't wait to see how your garden develops this year. I mean, it's easily the top performing account on the site. So it does engender so much interest, and it's very good of you to share your time and your enthusiasm and passion with the other members. John, thank you for your time as well. Do check out our Facebook group if you haven't yet done so. Loving Your Garden. On Facebook, we have a YouTube channel as well, which is still in its infancy, but we're developing it. And get in touch as well. I think with Buzzsprout, you have the option to send us a bit of fan mail if you're so inclined, or you could throw some questions at us. John, I'm sure, will be more than happy to answer those, or Steve, for that matter, if it's particularly about lawns and palm trees.
We've got 450,000 experts out there, Rod.
Yeah, 450,000 experts. Yes, indeed we have. So thank you very much for your time, and talk again soon.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah. Bye.